there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I split my time between this classic wooden motor cruiser MV Poem here in Genoa Bay and my other classic wooden motor cruiser MV Geordie in downtown Victoria, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing them both up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing that you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. Well, and that was a bit of an adventure. During the opening shot, I fell in the water. Fortunately, the dinghy was here and it caught me. Anyway, first things first, the scar. Yes, I had a little overly rambunctious playtime with Lady Zephyrus's new puppy, Finnegan, and all's well. Anyway, so yes, we're back in the shed with MV Poem, and I wasn't quite certain what I was going to do this week, but the bulk of it is gutting the aft cabin, which is done, and if I get to it, because of the magic of the sequencing of the timing of shooting video, there'll be a treat with lighting in the wheelhouse. Quick note, I will be wearing the torn jeans due to the magic sequence of laundry cycles. Every once in a while I am gonna have to wear them. Let's get to work. And hello and welcome back to MV Poem in the shed. Okay, let me take a seat here because I don't have full standing headroom back here. Okay, you can see we're in the aft cabin and it's time to gut the aft cabin. Now, part of me is looking forward to this and part of me is dreading this because there is a semi-functional galley back here with hot and cold running water, and I've just done my dishes for the last time. Yeah, I'm hoping this week to have the aft cabin completely gutted, which will expose the hot water heater which is under here, which I installed, the water tank and various drains, and I'm going to be able to, in that time, decide how I'm going to be able to reroute all those systems up into the house where the new galley is going to go, and maybe get a galley in there this week, which would be really, really great. But in the meantime, let's see what we find here. Okay, some of this code is pretty straightforward. Modular. Love it, Lloyd. Water tank. Too easy. absolutely miserable. You'll notice I even switched to a respirator and work gloves. I was tearing my hands up. It's come out really, really well, and I am so glad. The space feels so big. Well, of course, the light is not making it easy to stand up. But anyway, let's just do a little bit of a quick tour. One of the first things you'll notice, at least it's the first thing I noticed because I'm a wooden boat guy, is the bilges are completely dry. Absolutely dry. Remember that this boat is afloat, and it's just amazing. Well, I knew they'd be dry because the bilge pump hasn't gone off in weeks. It's just fantastic. Anyway, the second thing you'll notice is this relatively new exhaust system, which was it's nice fiberglass tube, properly double clamped in a new fiberglass muffler. Of course, I'm not so crazy about the installation. It shouldn't be that low there. But anyway, we can sort that out. And that's definitely a nice perk. This is probably a pretty good time to talk a little bit about what's going to power POEM in the future. And well, I certainly alluded to the possibility of electric. And in fact, I alluded to doing a special episode all about the practicality of electric propulsion for small cruisers. And well, spoiler alert, it's not practical, not even close. As a result, for starters, I'm not going to electrify POEM. The other thing is, I apologize, I'm not even going to be able to finish that episode. It's just too meaningless for me at this point. The motors are not the problem. In fact, there's so many companies now building electric motors for boats, it's ridiculous. But there's kind of a little dark secret about it, and that's the batteries range. There just isn't a reasonable range, so all the suppliers just say, well, go hybrid. Well, of course, you certainly can. A diesel generator charges the batteries, which runs the electric motor. What's the point? Okay, you can come in and out of your dock silently, but you're still burning diesel to get anywhere. So until battery technology vastly improves, you won't see, at least me, electrifying a small wooden motor cruiser. Okay, so this is the Chevy 6-cylinder with the Borg Warner on it, and it's going to go. And one way or another, there'll be a little Beta Marine 25 in here sometime in the distant future. It's the perfect motor for the boat. I've done all the sizing, it fits perfectly, and most importantly, it will get rid of that, which is right now my most annoying little thing. But anyway, that is not coming soon. But what I did want to mention is that the exhaust system will stay because there's going to be a little diesel here. The Beta Marine will actually sit a little bit further back, and which is why it'll fit underneath the kitchen galley cabinet, so it's going to be there. In fact, there's going to be a little night table right here at the side of the bed that will cover the back of the engine and the back of the transmission. Anyway, enough about all that. Okay, let's do a little bit more of a tour. The other thing you'll notice, especially if you're a wooden boat person, is that there's quite a few sister frames been put in. And some of these are done really, really well. Some of them perhaps not quite so well. They're all epoxy laminated, or at least glue laminated, and some of them were done really, really, really well. None of the existing frames are actually all that bad. They're split, but they're not actually broken, which is kind of nice. I don't know how well fastened they are. I don't know much about that, but the boat isn't leaking at all, and so I'm just not going to mess with that right now. The other thing you'll notice is a couple more of these turning shivs, which are really nice for the steering system. They're all seized and they've all gone flat on the inside. So as beautiful and bronze as they are, there's another set down there. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to actually even reuse them because of the flats that are cut into the shivs themselves. But I will get them off and have a look at them, because putting the new steering system in is relatively imminent. This is the through hull that was the drain for the galley, and it will continue to be the through hull for the drain for the head sink, which will be right here, as well as a pipe that'll go all the way along and through that bulkhead right over the engine for the drain for the galley. And I mention that because that is part of the next little bit of work. I very much want to build the new galley in here. So I got a sink, excuse me, but that does mean installing the the systems for it, which would mean the water tank, the drains, the water pump, etc. Now the water tank had been over here on this side, if you remember, underneath the settee. Well, this is going to be cabinetry, and I want this to be able to go as low as possible. So the water tank is either going to go underneath the bed, which is where I was thinking originally, although it's not ideal because it'll be a bit close to that exhaust pipe, and I don't want that constantly warming the water. What I'd love to get it is underneath the sole in the cockpit. Certainly not going to do that in the next few minutes. There's room under there, but I also have to get a holding tank under there. So I'm not quite sure how all that's going to go because there's a fuel tank under there already. Eventually, once the Beta Marine goes in, there'll be two diesel tanks, saddle tanks up forward, and under the cockpit sole will go a holding tank and a water tank. Anyway, enough about all that. Let's start to poke around a little more. Okay, well, I've just spent quite a bit of time figuring some stuff out. You see I've also realigned the muffler a little bit. Of course, that's only temporary, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, some of these lines are very important. This is the height of the counter in the galley. This is the edge of the bed, comes all the way to here. That night table is quite small. This is the top of the mattress. It has to be low enough so that your shoulder, when you're sleeping in bed, you have the full width of the bed right against the hull and not bumping into the cabin sides there, and that would be fine. With a nice big 10-inch mattress, this is the top of the structure of the bed, which means, haha, the plumbing from this sink has to come in to the night table and turn and under the structure of the bed. Notwithstanding what happens to the new Beta Marine that will be here, but I happen to know it's quite a bit smaller and there won't be a problem here. So it's going to emerge here somewhere down along. Now, you can see it's going to have to get underneath that stringer to be able to be relevant, but oh, look at that! The through hull is above the stringer. Well, there's actually no harm in that because that through hull is already way too high. So I'm going to drop it down 2 strakes and that will solve a bunch of problems. There we go. Nice bronze through hull. The trick now is not to drop it in the ocean. No worries, I got it. It wasn't bedded with anything. Or anything meaningful anyway. Okay, well I reused the existing block and realigned it for this position. It's going to go 2 strakes down, which is about 6 inches above the water line, and I much prefer that. And again, only galvanized fasteners into the hull or frames. And as always, as soon as the pilot goes outside, I'm going to cut the other way to avoid any blowout. Once I've cut a slot, there's no reason to continue to cut out there. There we go. And my favorite, butyl tape. Okay, again, hope it don't drop in the water. Just as soon as I get one washer and one nut on, I'm safe. There we go. Not going anywhere. Of course, I still have to bung that, but it's a good 14 inches above the water line, so it's not a panic. Okay, if my calculations are correct, this is the bottom of the cabinet in there. This is the edge of the nightstand, so we can put the hole through here, right here. Now this whole bulkhead right here is incredibly flimsy right now. There's quite a bit of structure that's going to improve on this. Of course, the door post that's going to be here, of course there'll be no door, but at least the door frame will help a lot. And of course the structure for the bed will help a lot. So it'll get better. Okay, so under here is going to go a insert adapter. Don't worry, I am going to tape that. And then a T. The reason for a T is that this will be promptly followed up with an elbow to go up to pick up the sink, the bathroom, the head sink that's going to be right here above. And this one will carry on forward to the galley. Okay, let's take this up. Okay, so I'm going to dry fit this whole setup. So let's go forward at about that angle. Okay, so that goes in there. And there we go. Woohoo! Well, good morning. After a rather unrestful night's sleep, I've given a lot of consideration to future planning. Nothing dire, just I was so determined to get the water system working again in a galley into the wheelhouse because, well, living aboard this boat in this shed while doing this work is more than a little taxing. And a little bit of creature comfort was, well, very appealing. But it does mean that sometimes I make unwise decisions. Certainly putting all the water system and the tanks and such back in this aft cabin before the soul is in and it's really ready for it, excuse me, is just not thinking wisely. So anyway, gonna defer all that until I can afford to put the new sole down in here, which unfortunately is some weeks away. No harm though, there is lots to do, and I think I've even got an idea for something that will increase the comfort level in the wheelhouse. All right, well, I'm not even sure you can see me in here because it's pretty dark, and it's pretty dark because I took the big fluorescent light and I transferred it to the aft cabin. Well, not that the big fluorescent light is the kindest of lighting for my living space. So I'm going to put in a light valance up here using these ubiquitous little strip LED lighting that everyone is quite familiar with. I've bought so many spools of these looking for a nice warm light. I like really warm LEDs. These promise to be they. So I'm not quite sure I have this fully designed yet, but it'll cover up this unfortunate mismatch of materials here, and I think it'll give a little nice light. There'll be one tape uplighting underneath the cabin top and one washing down over this beautiful mahogany. Anyway, let me start to think about it and start to put something together. There, I've opened the boat shed curtains to let a little light in here, give you a better idea of what's going on. Okay, so this will be the standoff piece. In other words, this is what's going to support the strip light on the top and the bottom, and then there'll be a cover piece that hides that with some trim on it. Anyway, so I've put a little bevel on the end so it sits against the windshield frame properly. And what you just saw me do on the table saw was just make a tiny little notch to go over this section of this vertical post here. And if I just press that into place there, it's just in the right place. So now I'm going to pre-drill a bunch of holes in here because there's going to be a little bit of a bend on this, which is not going to be too significant. And then I'll put spacers in here so it's consistently spaced down from the beams. This is going good. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, if you're not familiar with these LED strips, they do come with a connector which you can use, but if you need to be a little more compact and a custom length, you can cut them at all these cut markers, and the tiny little shiny pads you can see are actually contacts that you can use a specialized clip connector to connect to. So I need a certain length, 71 inches, and so I'm going to see if it's lucky enough I can get exactly that down here somewhere. Okay, it's actually 70 inches I need because of the connector. Let's just see how close I can come to... Oh my gosh, what are the odds? Exactly at 70. So I'm just going to put a mark here and cut in between. Wow. I'm going to very carefully cut right on that line so that the two contacts remain. And under those two little contacts, there we go. And once you've made contact, you close the door, and that locks it in as best as I can imagine. Now it pays to pre-attach your actual marine wire to the end of this little pigtail because this is a very flimsy arrangement. Okay, so I'm going to stick this on because this is be the top one, and it's going to sit right on top of that. The reason why this is so wide is this is also going to be a wire chase. I need to pass some wires along here for some cabin top lighting here, and that'll happen later. But anyway, let me just toss this thing on here. To increase the likelihood of this thing stuck for a while, I'm just going to wipe it down ever so slightly with the slightest dampness paper towel. To get any dust off of there, which of course will be very difficult for the adhesive to stick to. All right then, let's see what that looks like. Well, it's not as warm as I was hoping. It's hard to say because this paint is very, very bright white, but it's what I got. It's what I got. Let me try it on the bottom, see what it looks like on the mahogany. Okay, let's try this again on the bottom. All right, and the bottom. I really like just that little glow. Now we just got to put the cover piece on. Woohoo! Just going to record this angle. All right, well this is going to have to be sprung pretty hard into place. Oh, yeah. Oh, I like this light here. Oh, I love it, I love it. Okay, good. I'm happy with that miter at the end. Yeah, it's quite a tight spring. Anyway, that'll be fine. So what I want to do now is just mark where I can put screws. I'm going to need a lot at this end. And I have to make sure they're in an appropriate location vertically. Just half an inch down. Alright then, well this is going to be a little bit awkward because I'm pushing quite a serious crook into this. Let's just put that right there. Alright. Little pilot. Once I get a few along, this will be a lot easier. Whoa. Now I've let this run long a little bit at this end. I knew it would be impossible to hold it in place, measure it, and or scribe it. So I'm just going to cut it up against the the block inside with the Japanese saw. Whew. But I love the way it looks. Absolutely love the way it looks. Love that lighting under here. Wow. Beauty. The other thing I need to do is take a little notch out of the edge of the cabinet here for the wire access. And there we go. Oh, yeah. Now you guys are right underneath, so you can see the lighting, but from sort of normal standing height, I really like that. Just enough. Okay, I'm really digging this lighting. I was wondering if I was going to have independent controls. Just lower, both, or just upper. So, let's put some switches on, shall we? Okay, bear with me. These beautiful porcelain switches that are only available, as far as I can tell, in Australia, and these, along with a few that are already installed in Geordie, were a gift from a very fine gentleman. They weren't for Poem, but I'm going to try and arrange to get a few more, because I think oh, you know, it's not like it's a far reach. I like this. So, which switch for which light? This is the mood light. Yeah, this is the bright light. Okay. All right. Now these amazing little switches are actually three-way, so you can actually put a three-way circuit in. I don't think the boat is big enough to justify that. Okie doke. The downside of them being three-way is that they have 3 contacts, which means I have no idea which two to use. I realize my head is in the way. This is my favorite part. Oh! Okay. Oh yeah! Grilled cheese. Oh yeah. See you next week. Well, hello and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week, coming to you this week from the shed in Genoa Bay where I'm working on Poem. It was sunny a little while ago, so I thought this might be a good idea, but the sun is gone. So let's move straight on to the beer. From Hoyne, here in Victoria, or down in Victoria, is their Vienna Amber Lager. This is a mainstay on this coast, and I'm quite fond of it, but I don't think I've ever featured it on the show, and it was the only beer actually available in the liquor store in a bottle. I have mentioned I do not have a glass, so as I am working in the shed, I'm going to drink this straight from the bottle. Oh, and it is so perfect, so good. End of a long day, just perfect. So much better than the last time I drank from a bottle. Okay, let's get straight to the paperwork. Last week's winner of a Travels with Geordie t-shirt is Stephen Squire. Stephen Squire, get a hold of me. You've won a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Wow, I'd love to thank a new patron came aboard in the last week. Stephen and Lindy Hartstonge. gosh, Stephen and Linda, I hope I pronounced that correctly. In any event, thank you ever so much for coming aboard. I would love to thank a general thanks to all the supporters who support me through PayPal. As they do repeated support, it's not all that meaningful to continue to identify them by name, but they do continue to support me, and I'm very, very grateful for that. You know who you are. Thank you ever so much. This is a fine beverage. All right, all you need now is a Travels with Geordie word of the week. And the word of the week this week is illumination. Yes, now that I have illumination in the wheelhouse, illumination, illuminate, Illuminati? No, that's a totally different thing. Anyway, you know what to do with it. Cheers, see you next week. Illuminati. This classic wooden motor cruiser. I'm glad this dinghy was here.